Imagine a world where the promise of prosperity turns into a cold nightmare. Where millions of citizens wake up to freezing temperatures, their homes plunged into darkness. These are not scenes from a distant future, they are happening right now in Russia. The government boasts of missile capabilities and military dominance, yet neglects the basic needs of its people. How did this happen? Could such a vast nation truly forget how to keep its citizens warm? In the industrial heart of Siberia, residents of Angarsk endure freezing nights, shivering under multiple blankets. Barely keeping warm, they confess they have no choice but to endure. Their voices echo a brutal truth: patience has become their only defense against growing despair. But outside their frozen homes, the true chaos unfolds. Across Crimea, a peninsula once promised security and prosperity, residents now face a different reality. When the annexation was announced, rulers guaranteed growth, yet today, many are stranded on roads, shivering in houses without heat. The promise of safety has melted away, replaced by icy hardship. From Moscow to Siberia, across vast, snow-laden plains, millions are fighting the cold, victims of neglect and mismanagement. By 2025, the situation has spiraled further. Instead of funds for social welfare, cash is diverted into military ventures. The country edges toward a complete breakdown. One such epicenter is the city of Sarev in Sverdlovsk region. A sudden failure in the main boiler plant causes a chain reaction. The entire city of over 16,800 residents, including hospitals and schools, is left without heat in -40 degrees Celsius. The mayor urgently proclaims a state of emergency as chaos erupts. Thousands more are affected, 85,000 people suddenly trapped in freezing conditions when another accident hits the local power plant, dropping temperatures to -18 degrees. Further east, in Angarsk, Irkutsk region, the disaster transforms into a humanitarian crisis. A power plant from the Soviet era, 62 years old, collapses due to metal fatigue, an avoidable tragedy rooted in neglect. Almost 167,000 residents are left in the cold, with temperatures plummeting to -30 degrees. Imagine the horror: heater outages, pipes bursting, streets echoing with the sounds of cracking metal and freezing water. People desperately try to keep their children warm using hot water bottles, but with the grid overwhelmed, emergency lights flicker and die. The air smells of cold metal, burnt-out transformers, and despair. Russia's infrastructure, neglected for decades, is crumbling under the weight of war and corruption. The roads are clogged, broken, and icy. The rare resources that once fueled the economy, diamonds, uranium, gold, are today wasted while basic necessities vanish. Regions like the Sakha Republic, known as the coldest inhabited place on Earth, are suffering the worst. Without natural gas, most areas rely solely on aging coal plants, if they can afford fuel at all. The regional budget is drained, 24.4 billion rubles in deficit, and vital services are shut down. Children are missing school, the elderly face freezing homes, and hospitals operate in darkness. Officials admit they only received 34 billion rubles of the 63 billion needed, funds diverted into weapons, into militarized ambitions, not everyday survival. In remote villages like Tixi, water pipes are frozen, sewage systems collapsed, and schools shut their doors. Officials suggest cutting off cultural and sports centers to save money, leaving communities in silence. Debts pile up, coal supplies run dry, and many regions teeter on the brink of outright catastrophe. Meanwhile, at the national level, sanctions and logistical failures have strangled spare parts, leaving critical infrastructure to decay. Even further east, the vast highways become battlegrounds of their own. The Trans-Siberian Railway and other vital routes are blocked by snow, because municipal workers have been drafted into military service, and migrant workers have fled. The essential snow removal equipment is operating at half capacity. Snowplows lie idle, and the roads become icy death traps, blocking not only civilian traffic but military supplies heading to the front. The sound of grinding metal, roaring engines, and the biting wind fill the frozen air. And just when you think it couldn't get worse, it does. Infrastructure failures are cascading across the entire country: light, water, heat collapsing simultaneously. The social contract that once kept the nation united, keep the people fed, warm, and safe, shatters amidst the cold. Trust erodes, and the image of a powerful, invincible Russia crumbles beneath the weight of neglect, corruption, and war. This is not a story of distant strife, it is the unfolding reality of 2025 Russia. A nation drowning in its own failure, where the cost of war drains the very life from its people, left to freeze in the shadow of promises broken and promises betrayed. In early December, a catastrophic failure struck the city of Angarsk. The aging CHPP-9 thermal power plant, built 62 years ago during the Soviet era, suddenly collapsed due to metal fatigue. The entire city, almost 167,000 people, found themselves freezing in temperatures plummeting to -30 degrees. Can you imagine your home's heating vanishing overnight, leaving you shivering in the deadly cold? Outside, the air bites with a ferocity that seeps into bones, making every breath a gasp. The government advises against electric heaters, warning the grid will falter. So, what do desperate families do? They resort to filling hot water bottles for their children, clutching them tightly as the cold settles in. This tragedy isn't just about an old power plant, it reflects a broader failure. Russia's infrastructure, neglected for decades, remains rooted in the Brezhnev era. While the nation spends years building hypersonic missiles, its pipelines and heating systems rot silently. Now, as the war drains the budget, pipes burst under the mounting pressure, flooding homes and streets with ice-cold water. It's a silent disaster sweeping through the nation's veins. Far to the east, the Sakha Republic, known as the coldest inhabited region on Earth, emerges into winter with a grim outlook. Here, temperatures dip to -50 degrees Celsius, yet there's no natural gas to warm the people. Most areas lack functional central heating. Coal, once the lifeblood of winter survival, has nearly vanished, replaced by emptiness and despair. The regional budget deficit reaches startling heights, 24.4 billion rubles, leaving children without schools, elders in freezing apartments, and hospitals unable to operate. What does this mean for the people? As Viktor Fyodorov, a regional deputy, laments, they need 63 billion rubles to keep the energy system alive. Moscow only provides a fraction, 34 billion. Why? Because this region is sacrificed for the Kremlin's priorities. Sakha is a vital hub, rich in diamonds, gold, uranium, and rare earth elements, billions earned annually. Yet, it cannot even afford enough coal. The contradiction is glaring, vital resources, cold and forsaken. The infrastructure is failing, and the people are paying the price. Water pipes burst, sewage systems collapse, and schools shut down. Villages like Tixi find their entire existence frozen, literally and figuratively. The sound of cracking pipes echoes through silent streets. The crisp winter air, once filled with hope, is now thick with despair. As heat escapes, families brace for the worst, facing both physical cold and a lifeless government. Everywhere, a systemic collapse unfolds, hidden beneath the icy silence. Is this the future Putin has prepared? Or is this a warning of a nation on the brink of freezing forever? The Kremlin's choices are shaping a future of devastation for Russia's farthest regions. Villages like Tixi are paying the ultimate price. Entire infrastructure systems have frozen in place. Water pipes burst, sewage systems crumbled, and once thriving towns are now trapped in a silent, icy nightmare. Schools in the Verkhnekholmsky region have shut their doors forever, no heat, no learning, only the chilling echo of silence. In the Kobyisky area, boiler rooms are cold relics of debt, abandoned due to unpaid bills. Residents spend endless hours wrapped in coats, gloves, and hats, desperate to fend off the deadly cold. And what do local officials say? Rostim Dalanov, a regional leader, coldly suggests, let's not heat the cultural centers or sports halls. Let's save money. He wants to suspend all public life, arts, sports, community gatherings, virtually shutting down the entire social fabric. Is this the new face of mismanagement? A government that sacrifices its people's warmth and future for a false economy. Meanwhile, in the Republic of Sakha, the crisis deepens. Not only has fuel run out, but hope has drained away. Local authorities can't pay coal miners or transporters. Debts pile high, wages stop, and shipments cease. In some districts, last reserves of coal have vanished altogether. Even deputy energy ministers acknowledge the crisis, there's simply no money left to fund energy infrastructure. Only half of the 63 billion rubles needed for repairs has been allocated. The rest? Spent on missile production, a government prioritizing war over its own people. Western sanctions make critical repairs impossible, no turbines, high-pressure valves, or spare parts. Repairs turn into futile band-aids. Heavy snowfall and neglected roads leave fuel tankers stranded for days, frozen in place. And the worst part? It's not just Siberia that suffers. Even Crimea, once considered a paradise, is now caught in this systemic collapse. Storm after storm reveals how unprepared the Russian Empire truly is. But what is the tipping point? Could this frozen future spiral into chaos? At this moment, as the cold bites deeper, a new disaster begins to unfold. In the depths of winter, a fierce snowstorm struck Crimea, revealing the crumbling foundation of Russian governance. What was supposed to be a land of order and stability turned into chaos within hours. An entire month's worth of rain dumped in just 60 minutes, flooding roads and bringing entire cities to a standstill. The highway linking Simferopol to Sevastopol was shut down, cutting off vital transportation. Inside Yalta, daily life ground to a halt, and 17,000 residents lost electricity amid freezing temperatures. Why did this happen? The local administration had spent years transforming the peninsula into a military hub, neglecting essential infrastructure. The promised stability, the fairy tales told to residents, that Russia had come to bring order, began to crumble. Instead of warmth and safety, people faced darkness and cold chaos. This was not a simple technical failure, it marked the collapse of the unspoken agreement that kept the nation afloat. For years, the Kremlin had assured its people, if you stay quiet, we will keep you warm, fed, and protected. But now, warmth, arguably the most basic necessity, has vanished. Infrastructure that once held strong is breaking apart under years of neglect. Cities like Angarsk, Sarev, and Brodsk are witnessing systems failing one after another. Municipal officials urged residents to stay bundled up, but desperation grew quickly. People scrambled to buy electric heaters, demand skyrocketed, and the power grid buckled under the strain. Transformers exploded, plunging neighborhoods into darkness for days. The chaos was just beginning. Without power, water pumps stopped working. Pipes burst under the strain, flooding streets with icy water. Sewage lines collapsed, and clean drinking water became a distant memory. The failures spread like wildfire, one neighborhood after another, quickly turning into a widespread disaster. It was a devastating domino effect, each failure amplifying the next. This crisis is more than just physical suffering, it's shredding the social fabric of Russia. For generations, the people endured hunger, oppression, and forced mobilization. But now, if a mother cannot protect her child from the biting cold, or a patient cannot recover in a warm room, trust in the government erodes completely. What once seemed unbreakable is unraveling before our eyes. This winter is revealing the true cost of a system built on illusions, where neglect and greed have left millions exposed to freezing despair. The grand illusion of a powerful Russia rests on a dangerous contradiction that is now tearing its provinces apart. Soldiers are sent to fight, yet only the elderly, the children, and the vulnerable are left behind. Stranded in freezing darkness. How can a nation claim strength when its own core infrastructure collapses under neglect? In this strategy, the Kremlin intentionally shifts war burdens to impoverished regions, places like Siberia, Yakutia, and the Far East. These distant territories, rich in resources but forgotten in terms of care, bear the highest brunt. Tens of thousands of young men from these areas are conscripted in 2024 and 2025, either forcibly or voluntarily. Yet, the funds allocated per soldier, enough to fix local boilers or cover deficits, are siphoned away into missile programs, not local needs. What happens when communities see their children disappear into the war machine, with no hope for a future? They understand too well, in the silence of their frozen towns, their government views them as expendable. Ethnic minorities and rural residents are pushed to the front, their only escape perceived as military service, an illusion of opportunity that costs them everything. Meanwhile, the logistical backbone of the entire country, the East-West Highway, becomes a symbol of neglect. A 100-kilometer-long queue forms, not from the fierce cold, but from a crippling shortage of snow removal crews. Thousands of municipal workers have been conscripted into the military, migrant workers have fled. No money remains to buy salt, shovels, or repair damaged roads. The result? Snowplows are running at half capacity, and Russia's vast network of highways is turning into a chaotic mess. And yet, this is only the surface. Beneath it lies an even darker truth. This crisis in infrastructure isn't just about snow and cold, it's about the crumbling foundation of a superpower once built on energy and strength, now rotting from within. How much longer can the illusion survive when even the simplest acts, keeping a mother warm, delivering supplies, maintaining roads, fail so catastrophically? The cold is not just in the air, it's seeping into the nation's very heart, threatening to wipe out its future altogether. The recent events reveal a crisis that threatens the very fabric of Russian society: cold, chaos, and systemic failure. As winter tightens its grip, scenes of suffering unfold across the country's vast expanses. Homes remain dark, streets are buried under snow, and millions face a life-threatening silence in their heated homes. But what lies behind this desperation? How did a nation, once an energy superpower, crumble under its own weight? It all begins with a government that diverted funds meant for social needs into weapons production, a strategy that backfired spectacularly. In the industrial city of Sarev, a malfunction in the main heating plant left thousands shivering in -40-degree weather. Hospitals, schools, entire neighborhoods had no warmth. Mayor Vasily Sizakov declared an emergency, yet it was too late. The same story echoed in Angarsk, where an aging plant collapsed, leaving nearly 167,000 residents freezing in temperatures off -30 degrees. It wasn't just aging pipes or rusty turbines, it was neglect, the result of decades of infrastructure decay since the Brezhnev era. Imagine walking through streets where pipes burst with a deafening crack, water freezing mid-flow, and the bitter wind biting through thin coats. People hurriedly huddle in layers, clutching hot water bottles, desperate to stay warm. Power outages flicker like ghostly shadows, plunging entire districts into darkness. This isn't just a winter crisis, it's a systemic collapse. The infrastructure, once taken for granted, has become a relic of the past, unable to cope with today's demands. This chaos isn't confined to Siberia. Crimea, once promised prosperity by Putin, now grapples with blackouts caused by a storm of unpredictable weather and gross negligence. The occupation administration prioritized military expansion over vital repairs, leaving roads blocked, electric grids failing, and essential services in ruins. People in Crimea and beyond face the brutal cold, snarled power lines, broken pipes, the pungent smell of burnt cables filling the air. Their trust in promises of safety and stability erodes with every flickering light and freezing breath. The situation grows even more alarming as key regions like the Sakha Republic, home to colossal mineral riches, suffer the coldest winters on Earth but lack the basic means to stay warm. With no natural gas and collapsing infrastructure, children are out of school, elders shiver in empty hospitals, and the regional budget teeters on the brink of catastrophe. Officials admit they need over 60 billion rubles, a sum they do not have, to keep their power grids alive. Instead, funds are diverted to weapons and missile factories while the people's needs are ignored. The result? A landscape dotted with frozen pipelines, burst water lines, and a nation on the verge of environmental and social collapse. Meanwhile, the once mighty transportation routes, which used to connect Russia from west to east, are failing under the strain. Snow-laden roads are clogged with stranded trucks and emergency vehicles, their engines struggling against slush and ice. The very highways that connect supply lines become lethal barriers, halting military dispatches and vital logistics. The military equipment, fuel, and supplies destined for the front lines are trapped, buried beneath mountains of snow. This logistical chaos exposes a brutal truth: Russia's energy and military dominance is crumbling from within. Their reliance on natural gas as a weapon has become their weakness. In months past, Russia wielded its gas supplies as a geopolitical weapon, manipulating European dependence for influence. But now, European nations are sharply reducing their reliance, cutting Russian pipeline gas by over 70% since 2022. Strategic plans like the EU's Energy Independence Program accelerate investments in renewables, LNG terminals, and efficiency measures. Europe is fighting back, forcing Russia to reconsider its entire energy strategy. No longer can Moscow threaten with surging or halting gas flows, its power is slipping. As regional and international dynamics shift, Russia finds itself trapped between a collapsing infrastructure and a shrinking influence. While Putin's forces build hypersonic missiles, millions shiver in crumbling cities and freezing villages. The nation's grand illusion of invincibility is cracking, leaving a chilling question echoing through the shadows: how long can this systemic winter last? Russia's influence over European energy supplies is vanishing, transforming into an uncertain game of strategic moves. Projects like TANAP and Turkstream are reshaping the entire regional power dynamic. TANAP, connecting Azerbaijan to Europe, is not just about boosting Turkey's energy resources but also about Europe diversifying away from Russian gas. It is a direct challenge to Moscow's long-held monopoly. These pipelines aren't simply infrastructure, they are weapons in a larger geopolitical battle. As Poland declares Russia's old Druzhba pipeline a military target, the very arteries that once supplied Russian oil to Europe are starting to crumble, especially under wartime pressures. Parts of this pipeline are often inoperative, their reliability decimated by conflict and sabotage. Now, energy routes have become arenas of attack, with supply chain disruptions reflecting a broader confrontation. This is no longer about economics, it's about strategic dominance. Moscow's grand plan of bending Europe with energy is failing. While crude calculations suggested Russia had a vast geopolitical leverage fueled by exports, reality paints a different picture. European nations are building reserves, expanding LNG terminals, and developing new pipelines. The once monopoly power of Russian energy is dissolving into a fragmented landscape. Instead of a weapon of control, energy is slipping through Russia's fingers, weakening its influence over the continent. The emergence of Turkey, Azerbaijan, and LNG exporters signifies a new multipolar energy map. Russian supplies no longer hold the threat they once did. Power dynamics are shifting, energy dependency is no longer a one-sided weapon. Now, it's a fragile tool slipping away, exposing Moscow's false assumptions about eternal dominance. The current energy crisis among Russia's own people underscores this collapse. Resilience fades as supplies dwindle, and the world watches as Russia's strategic leverage erodes. This is not just a technical malfunction or supply chain hiccup. It's a systemic collapse of Russia's energy empire, revealing a grand realignment in global influence. A new era begins, one where Russia's energy weapon is losing its grip, and the old world order is crumbling beneath it. Will Moscow adapt or watch its influence evaporate completely? The stakes have never been higher. A direct connection exists between a nation's energy policies, internal stability, and its international reputation. Right now, that connection is weakening rapidly. Meanwhile, a new theme emerges: betrayal among allies. Russia continues to export energy to distant nations like Kazakhstan and China, earning vital foreign currency while neglecting its own citizens. This blatant sacrifice of domestic needs fuels mounting tensions between local authorities and Moscow's central power. Regions such as Tatarstan and Sakha cry out with growing desperation: resources are dwindling, and the central government's grip begins to loosen. The faint embers of control refuse to ignite warmth across Russia's vast plains. Instead, they signal the nearing collapse of an empire built on illusion. Putin's grand ambitions have condemned his people to stand alone in biting -40-degree cold, staring at frozen walls with trembling hands. The mind that once aimed to plunge Ukrainian cities into darkness now faces an unstoppable wave of chaos, breaking over the very heart of its own capital. Remember this: no military force can rival the fury of a population freezing in their homes, desperate and unforgiving. The ticking clock echoes through Kremlin halls, marking the countdown to catastrophe. Lights flicker and fade, plunging Russia into a shroud of eternal darkness. This isn't just a crisis, it's a freezing, silent invasion of your home. War has already arrived, wrapped in cold silence. The question remains: what is your response to this unfolding nightmare?